What if the most ambitious city ever imagined was being built right now, but not in the way you were told? What if the glossy promo videos showing a futuristic paradise were hiding a much darker truth? Satellite images have revealed shocking details about Saudi Arabia's $2 trillion megacity, the Line, exposing not only the mind-blowing scale of the project, but also the disturbing realities hidden beneath the sand. Once promised as a utopian vision of the future, the city is now facing terrifying obstacles, from entire villages being wiped off the map to spiraling costs and abandoned construction sites. Could the Line be collapsing before it even begins? Let's uncover the truth behind Saudi Arabia's desert dream that's now visible from space. A megacity like no other, or just a mirage? Imagine a city so futuristic, so beyond human imagination, that it stretches for 170 kilometers across the Arabian desert, piercing the sky at 500 meters, and housing 9 million people in a fully enclosed, mirrored structure. No cars, no pollution, no urban sprawl. A city where artificial intelligence dictates your daily routine, underground high-speed trains whisk you to your destination in mere minutes, and the very concept of traditional streets is obsolete. This is the Line, Saudi Arabia's most ambitious, most expensive, and most controversial project ever. But while the promotional videos showcase a dazzling utopia, satellite images reveal a very different reality. Instead of an architectural marvel, there's nothing but a deep, jagged trench slicing through the desert, a gaping wound in the earth, surrounded by dust clouds and the frantic movement of construction vehicles. No towering skyscrapers. No futuristic transportation networks. Just an empty sky, stretching through the sands of Saudi Arabia. If the Line is truly the city of tomorrow, why does it look like a battlefield today? Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman, the mastermind behind Vision 2030, promised the Line would revolutionize urban living and turn Saudi Arabia into a global economic powerhouse. The idea was simple: break away from the country's dependence on oil and create the world's most advanced, most sustainable city. But building a utopia in the middle of a scorching desert? That's an engineering nightmare. Temperatures in this region can soar past 50 degrees Celsius. There's no natural water source, no shade, no greenery, just endless sand dunes, blasted by relentless sun and bone-dry winds. Cities are typically built around rivers, coasts, or resources, not in one of the hottest, most uninhabitable places on Earth. The technology required to keep the Line livable would demand astronomical amounts of energy, more than what many small countries use in an entire year. And then there's the human cost. The Line is being built in an area that was once home to thousands of people who had no say in whether their land would be transformed into this dystopian megaproject. Satellite images reveal something far more sinister than construction. Entire villages have vanished. Towns that were visible in aerial photographs just a few years ago have been wiped from the map as if they never existed. Saudi Arabia's government has remained silent on the details, but witness reports tell a chilling story. The indigenous Uwaitat tribe, who lived on this land for centuries, was forcibly evicted. Those who resisted faced brutal crackdowns. Some were jailed, others tortured, and some even executed. Videos of protests surfaced on social media, only to be scrubbed from the internet by Saudi authorities. People spoke out, and then disappeared. It all begs a question: is a Line really about innovation, or is it a cover for something much darker? A mirage of progress hiding a dystopian reality? With billions at stake, political ambition fueling its construction, and thousands already displaced, the world is watching closely. But will the Line ever become more than a glorified ditch in the desert? Or is this just another doomed megaproject, a billion-dollar fantasy that will collapse before it's ever completed? A project built on blood and sand. Behind every grand ambition lies a hidden cost. But in the case of the Line, the cost isn't just measured in trillions of dollars. It's measured in human lives, erased histories, and forced disappearances. This megacity wasn't planned on empty desert land. It was built on top of people's homes, and those who refused to leave paid the ultimate price. For centuries, the Huaytat tribe had lived in the region where the Line is now being constructed. Satellite images from 2020 show vibrant villages, homes, and roads, evidence of a thriving community. But fast forward to 2024, and those same images tell a harrowing story. The land is barren. The houses, gone. The people, scattered, arrested, or dead. The Saudi government began issuing eviction notices in 2020, ordering the indigenous Huaytat people to vacate their ancestral lands. But when they refused, things took a violent turn. Reports from human rights organizations reveal mass arrests, forced removals, and brutal crackdowns. In one chilling case, Abdul Rahim al-Huwaiti, a prominent activist from the tribe, spoke out against the evictions, and just days later, he was shot and killed by Saudi forces. The Saudi government claimed he was a terrorist, alleging he fired at security forces first. But no evidence of this was ever presented. Instead, all who mourned him online were arrested. 4 to 7 members of the Huaytat tribe were detained, some sentenced to death for merely protesting. Satellite images don't lie. Where homes once stood, there's nothing but rubble. The Saudi government's silence only makes the reality clearer. Entire communities were wiped out, their existence erased, all in the name of progress. But is progress worth it when it's built on oppression, bloodshed, and suffering? And then there are the migrant workers, thousands of men from Bangladesh, India, and Nepal, brought in under harsh conditions to construct this dystopian dream. Reports of unpaid wages, unsafe conditions, and even deaths on site have surfaced, painting an even darker picture of what's happening behind scenes. If the line is truly meant to be the city of the future, why is it being built on a foundation of human suffering? The dark reality of sky-high costs from the very beginning, the line was projected to be one of the most expensive urban projects in human history. The original estimate? A staggering $500 billion. But now, experts predict the real cost could exceed $2 trillion, a fourfold increase that could cripple even Saudi Arabia's massive wealth reserves. The biggest question is, where is this money coming from? Saudi Arabia bet heavily on foreign investors, hoping that the shiny promotional videos and utopian promises would lure in billions of dollars. But that plan hasn't worked. Many major international investors have backed out, worried about political instability, human rights violations, and the project's sheer impossibility. At first, oil revenue was supposed to cover the costs. But with fluctuating oil prices and increasing demands for clean energy worldwide, even Saudi Arabia is starting to feel the financial strain. As a result, major parts of the line are being quietly scaled back. Reports state that by 2030, only 2.4 kilometers of the planned 170-kilometer city will be completed. That means less than 2% of the project will be finished in time for Vision 2030. And if even that small fraction is proving difficult, what does that say about the remaining 98%? MBS wanted the line to be the future of urban living, but it's already becoming a cautionary tale. Projects of this scale demand years of planning, billions of dollars, and immense expertise. But what if the line was always destined to fail? Could it be that the line is already collapsing under its own weight? The impossible challenge of keeping it cool when the world first saw renderings of the line. One thing stood out the most: its gleaming mirrored walls, stretching as far as the eye could see. It looked like something straight out of science fiction. But in reality, it's an engineering nightmare. Mirrored glass might look futuristic, but it traps heat. Saudi Arabia already experiences some of the hottest temperatures on Earth, regularly exceeding 50 degrees Celsius, 122 degrees Fahrenheit, in the summer. A city designed with enclosed walls and limited airflow would turn into an unbearable oven, requiring unimaginable amounts of energy just to stay livable. Cooling a 500-meter-high, 170-kilometer-long structure is no small task. Experts estimate that keeping the line comfortable would require more energy than entire countries use in a year. But here's the problem. Saudi Arabia's goal is to run the line on 100% renewable energy. Currently, less than 1% of Saudi Arabia's energy comes from renewables. The rest? Fossil fuels. So, where will this massive energy supply come from? If the answer is traditional oil and gas, the line could end up producing more carbon emissions than traditional cities, the exact opposite of its original purpose. And there's one more problem: sandstorms. The Arabian desert is notorious for violent dust storms, and a mirrored city with no windows means that fine particles will coat everything, constantly requiring massive cleaning efforts. Dust accumulation could block solar panels, overheat cooling systems, and even impact visibility inside the city. If the line is so dependent on technology just to keep its residents alive, is it even a sustainable city at all? The myth of a car-free future of the line has been advertised as a zero-car, zero-emission city, promising a radical transformation of urban transportation. Instead of roads and highways, a high-speed underground rail system is supposed to transport people across the entire 170-kilometer stretch in just 20 minutes. But when you dig deeper into this claim, it falls apart like a house of cards. First, let's talk about logistics. To move 9 million people efficiently, the line would require a massive underground metro network. But so far, no detailed plans for the construction of this rail system have been revealed. Experts say that a single train line wouldn't be enough. It would turn into a nightmare of congestion, breakdowns, and overcrowding. Even more troubling, there's no emergency backup system. If trains fail, residents will be trapped inside the city with no alternative routes to escape. In a traditional city, if the subway stops working, people can take buses, cars, or even walk. But in the line, there are no streets, no cars, and no backup plan. And what about delivery logistics? If the line truly has no roads, then how will businesses transport food, medicine, and supplies? Right now, cities depend on delivery trucks, warehouses, and supply chains, but the line seems to have none of that infrastructure in place. Saudi Arabia claims that autonomous drones and underground robotic systems will handle all deliveries. But these technologies are still years away from full-scale implementation, and no city in the world has ever attempted such a radical shift. Could it be that a car-free future is just another unrealistic dream that will crumble when faced with real-world challenges? The fake promotional videos versus. The satellite truth line has been heavily marketed as the world's most futuristic and innovative city, with promotional videos depicting gleaming skyscrapers, suspended gardens, waterfalls, and ultra-modern technology seamlessly integrated into daily life. These CGI-generated clips have captivated millions, painting a picture of a utopian metropolis where flying taxis glide between towers and residents experience unparalleled luxury in a self-contained vertical city. But while these promotional videos have successfully sold the dream, the reality exposed by satellite images tells a vastly different story. Instead of an ultra-modern city, all that currently exists is a long, deep trench, a scar in the desert where construction has barely begun. There are no glass towers, no lush green parks, no signs of flying taxis, just earth-moving equipment, skeletal steel frameworks, and a seemingly endless stretch of excavation work. While Saudi officials continue to push glossy renders and futuristic concepts, the underground evidence suggests that the line is still a distant fantasy, far from becoming the high-tech paradise it claims to be. The stark contrast between marketing and reality isn't just a minor discrepancy. It follows a pattern seen in previous Saudi megaprojects that have failed to live up to their promises. Take, for instance, the Jeddah Tower, which was planned to be the tallest skyscraper in the world. Construction began in 2013, but the project has been plagued by delays, financial setbacks, and corruption scandals. More than a decade later, the tower remains unfinished, with no clear timeline for completion. Similarly, the King Abdullah Economic City, which was meant to be a global hub for trade and business, has turned into a ghost town with vast empty developments and far fewer businesses than initially promised. So if Saudi Arabia has a history of announcing grand projects that never materialize, what makes the line any different? The fact that no actual infrastructure has been completed raises serious doubts about whether this project is even feasible at all. If the line is truly the city of the future, why hasn't even a single section been completed and showcased? At what point does a visionary dream turn into a mirage, one that fades the closer you get? The slow death of Saudi's megaproject dream for decades, Saudi Arabia has made bold claims about transforming itself into a global powerhouse, announcing record-breaking projects that promise to redefine entire industries. Yet, time and time again, these visions have faded into the desert, never to be realized. The line was supposed to be the defining achievement of Vision 2030, a testament to the country's ambition to transition away from oil dependency and establish itself as a leader in technology, tourism, and sustainability. However, as more details emerge about the project delays, funding struggles, and scale-back ambitions, it appears that the line may already be joining the long list of failed Saudi megaprojects. One of the biggest challenges facing the line is funding. Initially, the estimated cost of the line was projected at $500 billion, already placing it among the most expensive infrastructure projects in history. But as the realities of construction, engineering, and logistics set in, experts now estimate that the true cost of building the full 170-kilometer city will exceed $2 trillion. To put that into perspective, that's more than 4 times the cost of the entire Apollo moon landing program. Saudi Arabia had hoped that foreign investors would step in to fund a large portion of the line, betting that international companies would be eager to take part in what was marketed as a city of the future. But that enthusiasm never materialized. Many corporations have backed out, citing concerns over human rights violations, economic instability, and the sheer impracticality of the project. Others have simply refused to take the financial risk, knowing that a project of this scale would require decades of commitment, a level of uncertainty that most investors are unwilling to accept. With foreign investment drying up, Saudi Arabia has turned back to its primary source of revenue, oil. But this presents a massive contradiction. Vision 2030 was meant to reduce the country's reliance on fossil fuels, yet now, Saudi Arabia is increasing oil production to finance a project that was supposed to be a beacon of sustainability. With fluctuating oil prices and global pressure to transition away from fossil fuels, this financial model is already highly unstable. If oil prices were to drop significantly, the line could be crippled before it even begins to take shape. The financial strain is already evident. Reports have emerged stating that instead of completing the full 170 kilometers by 2030, only a tiny fraction, just 2.4 kilometers, will be finished. That's less than 2% of the original vision, a humiliating downgrade for a project that was supposed to change the world. The reduced scale raises a crucial question. If Saudi Arabia is already struggling to finance and construct even a small portion of the line, how can it possibly complete the entire city? Could it be that the line is already dying a slow death, long before it even gets a chance to be fully born? The hidden cost of building in the desert at first glance, the line sounds like something out of a sci-fi film, a 170-kilometer-long, 500-meter-high mirrored skyscraper, stretching across the harsh landscape of the Arabian desert. But what works in science fiction doesn't always translate to reality, and building in one of the most extreme environments on Earth comes with immense challenges. The first and most pressing issue is water. Saudi Arabia is one of the driest countries on Earth, receiving less than 6 centimeters of rainfall per year. For centuries, the country relied on ancient underground aquifers, but decades of overuse have left these reserves nearly empty. With no natural water sources, the line will need to depend entirely on desalination plants, a process that, ironically, is one of the most energy-intensive and environmentally harmful methods of obtaining water. Desalination requires enormous amounts of electricity, which Saudi Arabia has promised will come from renewable energy sources. But as of today, only 1% of the country's energy comes from renewables, meaning that, realistically, desalination will rely on fossil fuels. Even worse, desalination plants produce a toxic byproduct known as brine, which is dumped back into the ocean, damaging marine ecosystems. If the line needs massive amounts of desalinated water, how will it manage the environmental consequences of this process? Then, there's the unpredictable fury of the desert itself. The Arabian Peninsula is notorious for violent sandstorms, capable of reducing visibility to zero in a matter of minutes. While traditional cities have natural barriers, parks, and structures that break up the force of the wind, the line is designed as a long, continuous mirrored wall, a design that could make it a giant wind tunnel, amplifying the very conditions it seeks to control. If residents are trapped inside an enclosed, climate-controlled structure, what happens when a storm strikes? With limited exits and no open spaces, the line could become a claustrophobic nightmare, leaving people stranded with no way to escape the elements. What happens when one of the world's biggest glass buildings collides with one of the world's harshest environments? The massive carbon footprint of a sustainable city. From the moment the line was announced, it was marketed as a future of sustainable urban living, a city with 0 cars, 0 emissions, and 100% renewable energy. But when you peel back the layers, the reality is far from the eco-friendly paradise Saudi Arabia claims it to be. Instead, the line could go down in history as one of the biggest environmental disasters ever conceived. The first and most glaring issue is the construction phase. Building a 170-kilometer-long, 500-meter-high megacity requires an unprecedented amount of concrete, steel, and glass, all of which are some of the most environmentally damaging materials to produce. Concrete alone is responsible for 8% of global CO2 emissions, while steel production contributes another 7%. To put that into perspective, Saudi Arabia is attempting to build a city using materials that already account for 15% of the world's annual carbon emissions. Experts have crunched the numbers, and the results are staggering. It is estimated that the line's construction alone will generate over 1.8 billion tons of CO2 emissions, which is equivalent to 4 years' worth of the entire United Kingdom's carbon footprint. That means before the line even welcomes its first resident, it will have already negated decades of global efforts to reduce emissions. The Saudi government argues that once completed, the line will be powered entirely by renewable energy. But even if that turns out to be true, the environmental damage will already be irreversible. The emission produced from the construction phase alone will linger in the atmosphere for generations, contributing to rising global temperatures, melting ice caps, and extreme weather events. Adding to the hypocrisy, Saudi Arabia is still one of the largest oil producers in the world, generating over 10 million barrels per day. This means that while the line is being advertised as a model of sustainability, its very existence is being funded by one of the most polluting industries on the planet. It's the ultimate contradiction, a green city financed by data energy. At what point does sustainability become nothing more than a marketing gimmick? And if the line is truly designed for a cleaner future, why does it feel more like an eco-disaster in the making? The psychological experiment no one signed up for cities have always evolved organically, expanding outward based on human needs, culture, and geography. But the line is attempting to rewrite the rules of urban living, forcing millions of people into a narrow, enclosed space with no cars, no personal transportation, and only AI-controlled movement. This has never been attempted before, and psychologists warn that it could become one of the biggest social experiments in history. At its core, the line is designed to control movement. Instead of people choosing where they want to go, they will be entirely dependent on high-speed rail systems that will dictate their ability to travel. This means no spontaneous road trips, no scenic drives, and no flexibility in daily life. If the train system malfunctions or experiences delays, residents will have no other way to leave the city, trapped in an enclosed corridor with no backup plan. Then there's the mental health crisis waiting to unfold. Humans thrive in open spaces. We need parks, rivers, forests, and fresh air. But the line eliminates all of that, replacing it with a continuous stretch of glass, steel, and artificial lighting. Psychologists have warned that confining people to such a highly controlled, repetitive environment could lead to severe mental health issues. Studies show that lack of natural light, limited outdoor access, and reduced social variety can contribute to higher rates of anxiety, depression, and even cognitive decline. Imagine spending every single day in the same enclosed, mirrored space, with no escape, no nature, and no variation in scenery. Over time, would the line start to feel less like a utopia and more like a high-tech prison? Even more concerning is the potential for social control. With AI-driven surveillance, biometric tracking, and limited access to the outside world, the line could become the most monitored city on Earth. Every movement, conversation, and purchase could be tracked, analyzed, and controlled by the government. Could the line turn into the world's first AI-controlled city where people have no autonomy over their daily lives? And if that happens, who will stop it? A billionaire's playground? The line has been marketed as a city for everyone, but the reality is starting to look very different. With ultra-luxurious floating gardens, private AI-powered suites, and exclusive high-tech amenities, experts are questioning who the line is really being built for. The official claim is that the line will house 9 million people, providing affordable, sustainable living for both ordinary citizens and foreign residents. But many analysts believe that the line is not meant for the masses. Instead, it's being designed as an elite escape for the world's wealthiest individuals. One of the biggest red flags is the investment structure. The line relies heavily on attracting ultra-rich investors with promises of tax-free residency, exclusive business opportunities, and VIP-only zones. Instead of becoming a city that solves urban problems, it's shaping up to be a luxury retreat for the global elite. In fact, reports suggest that the line's most expensive real estate is being reserved for billionaires, high-profile entrepreneurs, and international tech moguls. Meanwhile, ordinary citizens might be forced into smaller, AI-controlled living quarters with limited ability to move freely. Is the line truly a revolutionary city, or is it just another billionaire playground, disguised as a futuristic utopia? And if that's the case, where does that leave the millions of ordinary people who were promised a home here? The final verdict, a vision or mirage? At the heart of the grand spectacle that is the line lies one of the most ambitious and controversial projects in human history. It is a monument to human ingenuity and a testament to extreme ambition, a city that seeks to defy all conventional wisdom on urban development. The sheer scale, design, and futuristic vision behind this project are unparalleled, making it one of the boldest attempts at reshaping the way people live. Yet, as time drags on and realities start to set in, the cracks in this vision become more apparent. While Saudi Arabia's slick promotional videos depict a glittering city of the future, complete with floating gardens, artificial intelligence-driven infrastructure, and an eco-friendly utopia, the satellite images paint a different picture altogether. Instead of a thriving metropolis, what exists today is little more than a massive trench stretching across the barren desert landscape. The towering mirrored skyscrapers, the sleek autonomous trains, and the lush green spaces remain nothing more than CGI renderings. The futuristic dream of the line remains far from becoming a reality. The engineering challenges alone are staggering. Building a 170-kilometer-long, 500-meter-high megacity in one of the most hostile climates on Earth is an unprecedented logistical nightmare. The sheer amount of raw materials required, the technological advancements needed, and the environmental hurdles to overcome make this a feat that borders on the impossible. Add to that the extreme desert heat, massive sandstorms, and lack of natural water sources, and it becomes clear why many experts doubt the project's feasibility. Then there's the financial burden. The cost of the line has already ballooned from $500 billion to over $2 trillion, and that figure could continue to rise. Foreign investors have been hesitant, given the political instability, human rights concerns, and the massive risk associated with such an experimental project. Without the outside funding it desperately needs, Saudi Arabia has been forced to rely heavily on its oil revenues, an ironic contradiction for a city that claims to be the epitome of sustainability. Meanwhile, reports indicate that by 2030, only 2.4 kilometers of the line will be completed, a mere fraction of the original 170-kilometer vision. If this is true, then the line is already failing before it has even begun. Beyond the technical and economic concerns, there are deeper, more troubling questions. If the line is supposed to be the future of sustainable cities, then why is it projected to generate more carbon emissions during construction than entire nations? If it is meant to be a city for everyone, why does it feel more like a billionaire's private luxury retreat, with AI-controlled smart living designed for an ultra-wealthy elite? If the city truly promises a better way to live, why does it feel like a massive social experiment that millions of people will be subjected to without consent? The world is watching closely as the line's true fate unfolds. The Saudi government continues to push its utopian narrative, promising breakthroughs in design, technology, and sustainability, but the reality on the ground tells a far more complicated story. As construction delays mount, costs skyrocket, and skepticism grows, the question remains, will the line ever become a real city, or will it fade into history as the greatest urban hoax of all time, disappearing into the desert like a mirage? The line was supposed to redefine the future of cities, a project so grand that it promised to change the way humanity lives forever. But as the world watches, the glossy promotional videos and the actual satellite images tell two completely different stories. What was once hyped as the ultimate smart city now looks more like a trillion-dollar gamble, riddled with technical, financial, and ethical concerns. Could the line still rise from the desert and prove the skeptics wrong? Or will it become one of the biggest failures in modern history? At this point, only time will tell. But one thing is certain, the world is watching, and the stakes couldn't be higher. What do you think? Is the line a revolutionary vision, or just another mirage in the desert? Drop your thoughts in the comments, and don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more deep dives into the biggest stories shaping our world. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next video.